Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Once again, I have my fans blaring in the background, so if you hear them, I do apologize. I'm trying to beat the heat. So today is a Tuesday, and with this Tuesday patch, the devs brought us some balance to the professions. So I thought I would just go over them, not in depth, but I wanted to more speak on things that I think are more important and the more significant changes and my overall impressions with this specific balance patch. So with that said, I'm just gonna roll through a couple of the changes with each and then stop when I feel like it's more important to talk about. So right off the bat, we have the Elementalist, which I think a couple things are very important here. In the last balance patch, they made a change to Meteor Shower, which meant it did more damage up front, but less damage over time. So they have applied that to a couple more skills in terms of Conjure Frostbow, Conjure Lightning Hammer, and a couple of the storms for Glyph of Storms. An interesting change that I saw was Lava Font. It has a reduced cooldown to 6 seconds, but it does 40% less damage. That seems quite hefty. I'm not sure if people were really complaining about Lava Font, at least from the community's reaction, but of course the dev team's internal statistics or thoughts probably came into play, and that's probably why. So that was quite interesting to see. Additionally, they buffed quite a few skills for Sword Weaver just to give it some more damage, which I am in complete favor of. They also, I had noticed that a couple of the skills, it reads like can no longer fire to targets behind the Elementalist. At first I was like, is this similar to the Renegade short bow situation that still hasn't been fixed, where you have to be facing them for the target to for the skill to activate? But it seems that you just turn around instantly and fire off the projectile. Additionally, the Weaver trait Elements of Rage now converts 13% of the Elementalist's vitality into Ferocity instead of 14% of the Elementalist's power, which is kind of interesting, and it kind of alludes to that they want to maybe have you have more vitality. I'm not sure, but that's one of the changes. Next up, we have Engineer, which I believe was just overall improving their condition damage front, as they've kind of fallen behind a bit, or at least that's what the devs believe. Along with the condition damage improvements, they changed Elixir H and Elixir U to have more reliable boon application, and additionally they fixed 3 traits. Once again, not an engineer main, so that's about as far as I'm going to comment. Next up, I have Guardian. Now, for those of you who have stuck around for a while, I main a Guardian, and I love Guardian so very much. And as a Guardian main, you know, I'm a little disappointed with this balance patch. And I completely understand that your favorite class can't always get the best, isn't always going to get the most overhauls, but I felt for quite a while now that the balance patches, when it comes to Guardian, they seem to kind of get the short end of the stick. Like, I've never really felt super satisfied with the balance changes. I only really feel satisfied when a new elite spec comes around, because they, in my opinion, they really execute well on elite specs. I've been having issues with Firebrand recently, but that's a whole different story. But getting back to this balance patch, it was literally all nerfs. Just nerfs. There weren't any buffs, and I believe in the original forum post by Arenio, he said that they were improving underused skills and traits, and I'm not seeing any of that for Guardian. I see it with other classes, but I would have liked 1 or 2 skills and or traits to be looked at, possibly for Valor. Even Dragon Hunter could have been interesting, because I know a couple traits don't really get used for Dragon Hunter. Overall, I wish, even for Dragon Hunter, I think they should do a Dragon Hunter rework. But anyway, for Guardian, it was a lot of nerfs to their healing. Ray of Judgment was completely changed to be more of an offensive skill and has a new icon, and that's pretty cool. It just does a lot of damage now. It is a single target attack and just does 8 packets of damage. Shield of Wrath, the cooldown was reduced by 1 second. Guardians are saved. Other than that, it was just a lot of healing reduction. Liberator's Vow, the Firebrand trait, the radius was increased from 240 to 360, which is okay, but it was already a staple trait that people take, so it's kind of like, meh. Moving on to Mesmer. Honestly, I haven't tried Mesmer too much recently. I played around like a game or two in unranked PvP, and I had fun with it. Overall, the condition damage was reduced a little bit, and their evasion frames were reduced a little bit, especially with Blurred Frenzy. Also, their Aegis application, it seems that a lot of their skills that could apply Aegis were drastically reduced. So, for example, Signet of Inspiration, Illusionary Inspiration, and Inspiring Distortion, all of their Aegis durations were reduced from 10 seconds and 5 seconds for Inspiring Distortion down to 2 seconds. So Signet of Inspiration, Illusionary Inspiration, and Inspiring Distortion all grant 2 seconds of Aegis, which is quite short. I could see it being more understandable in PvP, but it never says that this is a PvP only change. So it's going to be interesting. But again, this might leave some more room for a Mesmer support elite spec, reduce some baseline support. Moving on to Necromancer. This is probably one of the bigger ones for me as well, aside from the Thief, which we will get to momentarily. Necromancer, their power damage overall, I believe, got a fairly nice increase. So Life Slash, its damage was increased by 35% in PvE. Soul Spiral, the damage was increased by 50% in PvE. And Death Spiral, which is the Great Sword 3 skill, now has an additional effect. It will do 50% increased damage to foes who are above 50% health. Now remember, for Gravedigger, you do increased damage for foes below 50% health. This is pretty much the mirror opposite of Death Spiral. Moving on to the Scepter, Putrid Curse, the final attack in the auto attack chain, no longer corrupts a boon, which might be a bit difficult for people to get used to, and I believe would overall reduce its damage a little bit. Feast of Corruption, I just slammed my phone. Feast of Corruption, it now removes boons as well, and grants additional life force. So that'll come in handy. Seven Flesh Golem can finally be used underwater, which I know a lot of people have been asking for, and I have yet to try it out underwater, but I'm excited. Additionally, one of the bigger changes, Epidemic, it increased the travel speed of the projectile by 33%. However, the copied conditions are now at a 50% reduced duration. And I know a lot of people are upset about this. I am not sure my stance on it. I'm kind of more neutral. I'm like, overall, that would maybe help in a world versus world scenario, or to cheese some mechanics. I'm not too sure, but someone made a good argument that Scourge is kind of just lackluster in terms of its condition damage output and its support. Basically what I read was you kind of needed to stack Condi Scourges to cast Epidemic to have an effect, to be effective in raids. And of course this is in a raiding scenario. They're saying the condition damage is not viable and their support is not viable. Personally, I have been okay with their condition damage. I do think that their support is really lackluster and just overall meh. And I think it could have been interesting with the newest stat type, apothecaries, or no, not apothecaries, plague doctors. If it was main stat condition damage, main stat healing power, but no, it was main stat vitality, main stat condition damage. they're just probably never going to give us a main stat, healing power and condition damage stat. I'm convinced, but that's how the cookie crumbles. Also, I believe Doomfire got an interesting change. This trait now has a cooldown when used in conjunction with the Scourge specialization. Its cooldown is set at 5 seconds. So overall, their condition damage is being kind of nerfed. I mean, by kind of nerfed, I mean they are getting the nerf. Ranger was kind of lackluster for me as well. Poison Volley was adjusted, and overall their combination with their pets was adjusted, and the Beast Mastery trait line. Overall, kind of meh. I don't play too much Ranger, so I don't have too strong of a feeling towards this change or this section. Moving on to Revenant. This was interesting, and I'm kind of glad that they're still doing this. They're continuing to reduce the amount of energy needed for certain skills, which honestly I think Revenant needs, because it is their main focus is on energy, and this is overall just improving the flow of it. Additionally, they increased some damage for power builds in PvE for Revenant. Unrelenting Assault got a 25% damage increase in PvE, which is pretty good. One thing I will say, with the slew of energy reduction to the skills, I'll just start naming them off. It was Envoy of Exuberance, Embrace the Darkness, Protective Solace, Facet of Chaos, and Impossible Odds. I would have liked to see maybe a reduction to a couple other facet skills, just because I feel like Herald isn't really being used, and Herald is, the boons they apply are kind of meh. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. And even I would have liked to see some more weapon energy costs reduced, especially for the staff. I feel like some of their abilities might cost a little too much energy. And overall, I feel like weapon skills shouldn't cost that much energy, but that's just my personal belief. Okay, now we're getting into the Thief, which is the more bulky section. And one reason I'm blaming the Thief partially for my overall reaction to this balance patch, because this is basically Deadeye 3.0. They're taking a second look at the Deadeye, and you guys might be familiar with the previous patch. They did a overhaul to the Deadeye, and it seems that they have been doing an overhaul each patch, except for this one, and that's, I think, what kind of makes it feel a bit less exciting, because we already got a Deadeye overhaul, so now they're just like, oh, we're just redoing it, kind of. But for my personal overhaul, I'd like to see Guardian / Dragon Hunter and Revenant reworked, but that's just my personal opinion. Okay, so for the Thief, honestly, they just got some adjustments to their core abilities, but I'm gonna focus in more on Deadeye. So, interestingly enough, they now have stealth application on their stolen skill, their F2. And I've played around with it, and the stealth is kind of delayed, but I can accept it. I'm accepting of it right now. You will mark your target, and then when you use your stolen skill, when you desire, you will use it, but then after 2 seconds, then you'll go stealthed. And at first it was a little clunky, but I got used to it, so I'm okay with that. But let's just go over what they actually changed. Well, that was one huge part, adding stealth to the stolen skill. Death's Judgment, the damage has been increased to 25% per malice stack, up from 20%. Sniper's Cover, the aftercast of the skill was slightly reduced, which is really nice, as it allows you to go into it much faster and makes it feel more fluid. Kneel, the transition to the kneeling state now happens immediately. Oh, I think I switched this up. Kneel, the transition happens immediately, so once you kneel, you can start firing much faster. Sniper's Cover is the new skill that was implemented last patch, which overall helps. It's like the curtain that blocks projectiles. Free Action, this skill now interrupts the Thief's current skill instead of queuing behind it. So you'll just instantly get up. So that's pretty nice. Shadow Gust, this skill now cancels the thief's auto attack when activated. So if you happen to be auto attacking, you will now just stop and activate Shadow Gust. Mercy, one of the cantrips for the Deadeye. This skill now grants 3 initiative in addition to its initiative per malice, regardless of malice level. Reduced the initiative gain per malice consumed to 1. This skill no longer cancels the thief's current mark when activated. So it's no longer removing a mark, you're just gaining more initiative, which honestly, I might play with that more often because I never really was into canceling a mark, but that was just me. So yeah. Additionally, a couple other traits were adjusted. Malicious Intent, it removed the bonus malice on the heal skill, but it added bonus malice gain when hitting the mark target with your stealth attack. So that's good. Silent Scope fixed a bug, and Payback, it increased the skill recharge effect from 10% to 20%. It's pretty nice. And that's, I think, all that really happened with Deadeye. From what I've played with it, it feels a bit smoother and much more responsive, and I feel like I've been having a lot more fun with it in compared to its older iterations. Finally, the final class, we have Warrior. Right off the bat, they have just improved somewhat of the condition damage slant with Final Thrust. It now applies 6 stacks of bleeding for 8 seconds if you strike a foe below 50% health. Its condition damage on its auto attacks, the bleeding was reduced from 6 seconds instead of 8 seconds, which, give or take, is kind of okay. I'm content with that change. And Savage Leap, the second skill for their sword attack, or the second skill for their sword, the damage was increased by 66%. So there you go. And one thing that they were focusing on was the warrior's support capabilities, which I don't say often, so I am appreciating this change. So what they changed for the support warriors was focusing on Warhorn and the shout skills, which, thank Dwayna. I previously mentioned that if you're going to implement a legendary weapon, especially if it's Warhorn, which is not widely used, in my opinion, and not really a fan favorite, their skills when you release a legendary weapon should be adjusted for classes, and I'm glad that they did for Warrior. So Charge, your 4th skill for the Warhorn. This skill now removes Torment and Burning from allies in addition to its previous effects. Call to Arms, the 5th skill. This trait no longer applies a weakness. Instead, it now removes weakness, vulnerability, poison, confusion, and slow from allies in addition to applying vigor. So that is more of a stronger Condi cleanse. And overall, I think Warhorn is going to be pretty nice in PvP if you so desire to take it in there. And more specifically for World vs. World, I feel like Warhorn might be better placed in World vs. World now because of their trait change, which I will be describing right now. Quick Breathing. This trait no longer removes conditions from nearby allies. Instead, it increases the number of targets affected by Warhorn skills from 5 to 10. Additionally, it will now grant 1 strike of adrenaline to the warrior for each ally affected. So it's more adrenaline and more allies affected for your Warhorn skills. So that's pretty good. I enjoy. Defiant Stance increased from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. And now for the shouts. On My Mark now uses a lower cooldown of 25-second ammunition recharge. The refill duration was increased from 4 seconds to 6 seconds. Fear Me, this skill now applies 6 seconds of weakness to enemies in addition to its previous effect. For Great Justice, this skill now uses ammunition with 5 seconds between activation and a 25-second recharge for the ammunition. Shake It Off also uses ammunition with a 5-second recharge and 25-second ammunition recharge time. This skill is split and will now use a 50-second cooldown in PvP and World vs. World while cleansing 6 conditions. So I think that's pretty fair. You don't want too many Condi cleanse abilities that are super strong because then condition damage will fall flat. But then again, you don't want there to be no Condi cleanse because then condition damage becomes too overpowered. It's a nice balance. Scorched Earth. The projectile firing speed has been increased by 200%, and I actually played around with it. This is the Berserker longbow adrenaline skill, and it just shoots out so quickly now, and it's pretty nice. And then peak performance and attacker's insight, their damage was changed, their percentages were changed. So overall, those were the changes to the classes. I'm not completely sure how I feel about this. I think this is kind of more of an okay balance patch, mostly because we didn't get a specific profession overhaul like we have been with the recent balance patches, but I'm excited to see what they go with next, because we went for the Mesmer with their illusion changes, we went for the Deadeye with their complete rework and how they actually use one of their core skills, Death's Judgment, and for this patch we took a second look at the Deadeye's rework, and I'm kind of excited to play more Deadeye. Overall, thank you everyone so much for watching and listening. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave comments down below on what you thought about this balance patch, specifically Guardian. Also, I'd like to quickly mention, because I'm not finished. They have been changing Guardian skills for the past couple of patches. With the underwater combat, they redid the auto attack for Trident to have a 3-chain ability and have more healing. For this patch, they redid Focus, which is a projectile that bounces, which would apply regen into more of a damaging ability. They have not adjusted Guardian Staff auto attack, and in my opinion, it is not useful at all. A lot of people are like, it's loot stick. No, Firebrand is the loot book. It has 600 range, it's a cone, it's basically what Wave of Wrath was. And overall, I don't think that the auto attack fits Guardian Staff at all. In my opinion, it is my least favorite skill in the entire game. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. Like the video, like it, comment below on your thoughts on this balance patch, and subscribe for more Guild Wars 2 content, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye everyone.